gosh.
Yeah. So we are live. Yes, we are live. All right, amazing. So guys, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's absolutely a pleasure to finally have FUP Fridays go live again. We're actually doing this after an entire year. I mean, couldn't have been better because this is actually a day which is quite special for Hatch and us. I think Brindha will let you know what that surprise is. But once again, thank you everyone for being here. We have two amazing ladies who are going to talk about all the FUPs during their journey with their startups. Minori?
No, very excited to be here. My first ever FUP Friday, virtual, of course. And I think my aim for the day is not to use the F word, I think, out loud is my challenge.
I was careful not to use it yet.
Yeah, see, there you go. I'm learning from the best, But yeah, really looking forward to hearing from Brindha and Nare and on their amazing entrepreneurial journeys.
Exactly. So just for the benefit of the audience, we have a very simple format here. We will just go ahead with one of the speakers. They will share their story for about 15 minutes. And then once both the speakers are done, you have your opportunity to ask all your questions that you want. So have your questions ready. We would like to have this as a very interactive session. And there is a lot that we can learn from both these lovely ladies. So without delaying, we would like to have Brindha go first. Brindha is fondly known as Queen Bee of Hatch. And she is probably the most friendliest, lovely person that you will ever cross down the corridor if you go into Hatch. And if anyone hasn't been to Hatch yet, please go see that place, meet Brindha. You will always have something served to you, like a piece of cake, or if I'm there, you'll get Kimbala bunnies. But Brindha is the most loveliest person you'll meet at Hatch, and she's also probably the best interior designer that I know, and Hatch is a testament to that. And I think she has gone through a lot in terms of ups and downs with her startup, and how things came to be right now. So without me taking too much time, Brindha, over to you.
Thanks, Anish, for that lovely introduction. Hi, everyone. Before I start, I just wanted to take a moment to thank Nare for being here. I thought to myself, if I were to ever speak at FUPs, I really wanted it to be alongside Nare, not only because she's a smart, passionate businesswoman, but she's also just an incredible woman of God. And over the years, she's really helped me make a few really critical career decisions and really supported me when really all I wanted to do was throw in the towel and call it a day. So Nare, thank you so much for being here. Today is a really special day, as Inosh mentioned. Today Hatch turned 3, and there has been many FUPs and learnings along the way. Before I get to them, I think I'll just start by giving you some context and background to myself, because honestly, I don't really speak very often. So I moved from London to Colombo 6 years ago, having married my husband and my co-founder. Yes, I work with my husband, and that too was almost an FUP in and of itself until we got our act together. So Nathan, Jeevan, and I started Hatch with a very clear purpose, which was really to create opportunities for anyone from any walk of life to create meaningful change in the world. We think the most impactful way of doing this is to teach someone the skills and the methods to go out and fish for themselves, rather than providing someone a fish. So with that said, we hope that we would actually create a culture of paying it forward. For me, this purpose is particularly meaningful because I think if more women have the opportunities to gain knowledge and become financially independent, it will ultimately give them a choice. And I've seen the impact that this can have on women, and it's just powerful. So Hatch is a business with a great purpose, which took the form of a creative, inclusive space with a supportive community that was driven by innovation. For me, I thought it meant that I could design a pretty building and I could help people in a meaningful way, and that we'll all live happily ever after. And it sounded so simple and so perfect, right? And I think that was probably my first biggest F up. I think I was just really naive going into business. As an owner of a business, you rarely get to do all the things you love all the time. For example, if you really love baking and you're really good at it, you don't just go off and start a bakery just because, in all likelihood, you won't be baking all day and making people happy with your food. You actually have accounts and sales and inventory and so many other things that are really critical to your business. And there's a lot to learn. And honestly, the reality is that when you're starting, you don't have the money to hire all the people that you need. And you end up compromising on the aspects of the business you're really good at and want to do. I come from a legal background, and all of a sudden, I had so many things on my plate. I had to know about construction, operations, programs, sales, finance, like everything under the sun. And there were many aspects of the business that I honestly wasn't confident in yet. And I know the age-old saying, hire the skills you don't have. And I agree with that 100%. If and when you can afford it, I think you should go and hire the skills that you don't have. But what you don't do is what I did, and it's called management by abdication. There were team members the team members at Hatch who really thrived in areas that I had no knowledge in, and they did an exceptional job. So I abdicated those responsibilities and those roles because ultimately they were taken care of. But when it came to these individuals moving on, I had very limited visibility into these areas of the business. And I think as a founder, that's a fatal mistake that you can make. I found myself really starting from scratch in these areas while managing a business which was at its growth stage. So, I just had to take a step back, and I just had to realize that Hatch is actually a hub for learning and mentorship. And I wasn't really utilizing all the things that I was offering to startups for my own self-growth. I now actively take part in a lot of the open house sessions and get mentored by some of the mentors as well, who give me really great, valuable insights. And I think this has helped me know enough to contribute to a conversation in all aspects of the business without having to micromanage talent. I think also running a business during COVID has been a really humbling experience. It's been a very, very hard year. I know it's been a hard year for everyone, but for us, it's been a really hard year with sales. We had a client who wanted to take a large space within Hatch, and they wanted to engage us through a model we typically didn't offer. However, we were open and we were flexible to work with them and build something of a hybrid model. As part of this deal, we had multiple rounds of negotiations. And we were in the last round, and the client had a particular request that I was very reluctant to fulfill. So I just remember dragging my feet without making a decision for, I think, over a week, probably. I wasn't listening to my head of accounts, who indicated that, hey, we actually really need this client. I was just so fixed in my way of thinking and the way that I wanted to do things. Because I think as a business owner, I had certain expectations for Hatch because I know the business and I know the value that we add to our community, be it in COVID or not. I was just so fixed in my way of doing things that I was just, I didn't want to concede. It was as simple as that. But I think there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, I think. Anyway, at the end of that week, lockdown 2 happened, and I lost the client. And in hindsight, I know that it was my pride that led to this indecision. So basically, I had allowed my pride to get in the way of the commercial well-being of the business, and the business suffered as a result. I think this was a personal lesson I had to learn in humility. But look, God is gracious, and the client came back. When my ego wasn't clouding my judgment, I realized there was an opportunity to construct a deal differently. And through this experience, there were 2 lessons. Really, the first one being indecision is worse than making the wrong decision. Because internally, my indecision was causing confusion to everyone around me. The sales team and the finance team, they honestly couldn't move forward because there were areas of the business that this decision was contingent on. And my indecision meant that in this particular circumstance, I actually lost revenue for the business as well. So I think the second lesson was just to allow your pride and ego. Don't let your pride and ego get in the way of making decisions. Sometimes it doesn't matter how you feel or what you think. You have to put the business's interests ahead of your own emotions. So I think the lesson is really leave your ego at the door. Most entrepreneurs don't like to admit it, but the fact is that the majority of small business owners have a hard time seeing themselves as separate to their own business. And it's as if their business defines them. If their business is successful, they too see themselves as successful. And if the business has had a bad month or a bad year, they begin to internalize those failures. And I think they see themselves as lacking as leaders. And that's really how I was feeling. The mindset I now have is very different. I can now clearly separate myself from my business, which has really ultimately helped with my health and my lifestyle as well. So to summarize, I guess, my learnings over the last 3 years is don't delegate by abdication. Make sure you learn all areas of the business so you can contribute to those areas. Because, once you know it, and no one can take that away from you. Feel confident to make decisions, because indecision is worse than making the wrong decision. The journey of a startup is about finding mutually beneficial opportunities for customers and yourself. There's always a solution. You just kind of have to be open and creative and not let your ego get in the way of your decision making, like it did for me. And I think finally, and most importantly, your business is a wonderful place to create value in the world, to challenge yourself and to grow, but it cannot be the sum total of who you are. That's my F-ups, guys. Thanks for listening.
Oh, did we just lose Enosh? No, he's back.
Oh.
There we go. Excellent. So while we're getting Enosh back, our next speaker is the amazing Nare Bandaranayake. First time I'm meeting Nare. Nice. I've heard amazing things about you, Nare, and not just what you do as a business, but the influence you have on the community, especially female entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka, just like what Brindha said. So it's amazing to have this super duo with us today. So I'm sure all of you do know Nare, but just reading up on what you've managed to achieve, Nare. since you've come back to Sri Lanka, I believe in 2016. Yep, we're getting messages saying, we love you, Nare. So both of you got amazing fan girls and boys, I think, here today. You've gone on to do an amazing business with Barresentials and Pilates. Floor's over to you. What have been your lessons over the last 3 to 4 years?
How much time do we have? Hi. Thank you so much for having me, and happy birthday, Hatch. I know that getting to these milestones are huge, so thank you so much. And Brindha, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction and welcome. I really, it touched my heart. Thank you. So as an introduction to anyone who doesn't know me, as a background, I'm a science geek turned entrepreneur, turned banker turned entrepreneur. My undergrad is in neuroscience and my master's is in finance. And I used to work in banking in London, both sell side and buy side, before moving to Sri Lanka in 2016. You are right, Minuri. And going through pretty much like I don't know, I wouldn't call it a midlife crisis, but just like, what am I doing here and why did I come? So it was a really strange year for me, because I came with such conviction in my heart that I want to work in development. I want to work with women's empowerment and in promoting education, improvement in education in Sri Lanka. But once I got here, I just realized that, you know, things are tough for a reason, and these avenues were not opening up for me rather. And reality kind of really slapped me in the face. And I was missing not just, you know, the fact that I had a great job, a great paycheck, a great life that I kind of left to move here, but also, weirdly enough, I had started working out like 4 times a week, feeling really healthy in my body and my mind for years. And then when I came here, I found that that just wasn't happening for me here either. So, and that is how Barresential was born. In 2014, I was kind of toying with the idea of bringing reformer Pilates down to Sri Lanka if I ever moved back home. And when I did move and I was going through all this chaos in my head, I kind of dabbled with the idea of maybe, you know, I can't find something that works for someone like me. And by someone like me, I mean someone who doesn't like to exercise, even now, surprise, surprise, who is not very sporty, who gets injured really easily, and who hates the gym. And I genuinely, like, even now, if I go into the gym, I don't know what to do there, right? And I've spent like hundreds of pounds on gym memberships and never used them. But in London, in about 2013 time, I found the boutique wellness market, which really spoke to someone like me, especially because it captured all those things that were lacking in a gym environment for someone who hates to exercise. So by that, I mean specialized instruction, so personalized attention, making sure that an instructor will come by me and correct my form and tell me exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing, which is something that I find quite important. Beautiful spaces, I'm a sucker for luxury. And so this whole premium kind of outlook, I was great compared to smelly gyms, you know. And then of course the convenience, like taking my phone, booking a class, signing up online, canceling when I can't make it, no need to call people, none of that stuff, paying online. It was just super convenient. So I got hooked onto that, and I wanted to build that model in Sri Lanka. Started off in my living room with barre. Barre is a full body workout. We work small muscles, which is like super crazy when you actually do it. You think it looks easy, but when you do a class, you're like, oh crap, this is, what is this? Why am I doing this to myself? And then 3 months later, added mat Pilates to the repertoire, again, still from my living room. And in 2019, between 2019 and then I started working with private clients. So working with pre and post rehabilitation Pilates, pre and postnatal Pilates, working with clients who have injuries, because a lot of people, when they go to a gym or to any fitness class, they actually injure themselves more than they help themselves. So we were able to be kind of a hub for those that were getting injured, rehabilitating them and sending them back out. 2019 time, we got our first instructor employee, trained her up, started her running classes, and then got investment to create a 2,000 square foot space, which we are now in Thimrigasai Road. We have 7 reformer Pilates machines, a separate bar studio. It's a beautiful, beautiful space. So it all felt, you know, really nice and peachy. Things are going great. And then, of course, in March 20, the pandemic hit, and it just went from there to kind of rock bottom. That's literally how our revenue graph looks as well. I laugh because we can't cry. So, so what did I learn through all of this? I think the key thing, which is amazing, I know it's God's will because Brindha spoke about it right at the end, which is my first failure, is becoming too emotionally involved in my business. And that is because there was so much blood, sweat, and tears poured into this. I can't imagine. There has been so many events that has caused me to just cry and cry and cry and just wonder why, what, and everything is done alone as well, right? So from giving up, not giving up, but letting someone else instruct classes in 2019, everything else was still me. So it's a lot of stuff to carry on the shoulders. What happened was, although I've worked really hard jobs before where I've done 15-hour work days and work was life, this became just another level of life. I can't even explain it. You breathe, you live, you breathe, you work, you sleep. Everything became Barresential. If I'm thinking of something, it's Barresential. If I'm watching a movie, if I'm reading a book, oh, I have an idea here, let me try and implement it there. It just became all consuming. But at the same time, when things were going great, that's fine. But like Brindha said, because you connect so deeply with your business, when your business suffers, it feels like you are suffering. And that, of course, was massive red flags that were starting off, but it really didn't come to fruition till the pandemic hit, till about August last year when everything sort of imploded. I think what I realized was, one, not being able to separate myself from my business meant literally what Brindha was saying, which is, I can't make decisions that may be good for the business if it's going to be not so great for me, and then vice versa, right? And you called it, Brindha, I didn't have the guts to call it that, but that is my ego, right? So that, and I've had, my fiance telling me, okay, that is ego, you should keep your ego outside of the business, but I held on to my ego. And I can see how certain things didn't play out the way it should have played out as a result of that. And also looking at how work-life balance, right? And mental health. There was no semblance of work-life balance in my life before before August 2020. Even, the pandemic made it worse, if not, it never made it better. But it was just a matter of going from like 8 a.m. to teaching classes, coming back home, doing social media stuff, having lunch, going back to work, blah, 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 blah. And then the worst thing was, I was messaging my employees at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, because I was doing accounts at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and she had done the sales during the day, right? And this is this lovely intern who's like 18 years old, who this is not what she signed up for. But, kudos to her that she did this amazing job with me, which is working till late and not letting them have their lives. And honestly, I look back and I'm like, this is not an investment bank that I'm trying to build. It's just, it's a fitness business. It doesn't require me to work till 11 p.m. and make my employees work till 11 p.m. That's not necessary. Just having that perspective became so important. And that perspective did not come till everything kind of blew up almost, right? So I think if you are able to prioritize your own mental health, identify when something you're holding so tight to your chest is actually toxic to you, and if you can remove it away from you, then it becomes a lot more healthier. And for me personally, prioritizing work-life balance, both not just for myself, but also for my employees, having perspective on what I'm building and what that means. I should have been embodying wellness and fitness, right? Not getting sick because I don't have time to work out because I'm so busy driving this business up and up and up. And then I think this is probably the most important thing for me, is to understand that Barresential doesn't sustain me, nor do I sustain Barresential. Both of those comes from my God. So being more aware of that, which I am now, but which I wasn't before, would have saved, I think, me a lot of heartache and trouble. And I think it's also important to say that I was terrible at delegating, but I have now become a fantastic delegator. I don't do anything for the business anymore. So that is that. And then, so coming on to failure too, it kind of links to that, which is hiring the, I don't know, I wouldn't call it the wrong people, but hiring people who weren't exactly right for the business and not understanding that. I think I will be the first to put my hand up and say I am terrible at hiring. Like, I don't do it anymore either in the business, because I genuinely don't know how to judge character, apparently. So I have just let it be. That this should not be my forte. But, saying that, everyone who has worked for Barresential, even if it was for a day, contributed to the growth of the company. And for that, I am eternally grateful. This is not a judgment of them. This is a judgment of me as a founder and how I should be better at picking the right people for this business. But how do you do it? I was talking to a friend of mine as well just before this, as I was preparing. How do you nurture talent but not get taken advantage of? How do you build relationships and care about your team, but also listen when they show you who they are by their actions? How do you recognize severe red flags and decide to cut relationships short without being afraid of short-term revenue generating consequences. And it's short-term, it's never long-term, right? With these sort of things, that people are always replaced, and then you find better and better talent. And how do you seed out narcissism, dishonesty, immaturity in the selection process when it's geared for people to show you the shiny, happy selves that they want to project, right? And of course, I don't have answers to any of this, but I think in terms of findings is the fact that we now have a really brilliant team at Barresential. We've had to rebuild since August 2020, and some of them are actually watching here, and I'm not just saying it because they're watching, but excellent team. You know, I've had to take a step back and put a management layer between myself and the team, just simply because of the things I spoke about earlier. But I feel like this team is all those things that I said I wanted to see in a team, in a person. And I think we found it because we hire for character now. We think that skills, especially Pilates and bar and anatomy training, like that stuff can be taught, but character cannot be taught. That comes from your family, that comes from the ethos you follow, you know, whatever it is, that's not, we can't craft that. We need to find those people, we need to invest in them, and we need to value those types of people. Never hire narcissists, never doing that. We all know how to find those narcissists, so I'm not going to go any further there. Create procedures and processes as quickly as possible. As soon as you start getting in new hires, you should start creating those processes. I waited till like last year when I already had like 7 people with me, but that should have been done with the first hire, because then you can, because they find it difficult to separate you from your business and the relationship they have with you with the relationship they have with the business. And by implementing those procedures, you kind of take that gray area out of the equation. Give chances, but not unlimited chances, I would say, and have non-negotiable deal breakers. So, you know, lying, cheating, that sort of stuff, that has to be deal breakers in every business, because that again reflects the values of who you're hiring. And then failure 3, not so controversial, guys, is me not being really quite, not quite understanding the market that I was building for, I think, right? So I spoke about convenience. I spoke about the things that really attracted me to this business model in London. And that's because London is a quick, fast-paced city. We're always busy. We're always rushing from point A to point B. We don't have time to take a phone call and book a class with someone, right? You need all the tapping and whatnot. But so at Barresential, we have an online booking system. We have a website that's fully equipped. It's got, you know, all the information that you're ever going to need about bar and Pilates. We have an online payment system. But people want someone to pick up the phone and speak to them, right? And we don't have that, because I didn't think that was necessary, because that's not necessary for me. But the market wants someone to sit and talk to you and explain to you what kind of classes should you be doing, what kind of setup is, what does the class look like, etc. They want someone to text them and tell them, okay, you know, you can book into this class now, or you don't need to book into this class, whatever it is. They want to pay cash after class for a class they've already taken, whereas in London, you pay before you take a class. Simply because that's just kind of logical, but it's a different system, right? Where convenience in Sri Lanka feels like we skipped a step for the market. By adopting technology too fast, we have taken away things that, so in London, they've taken out the human connection and they've given us technology because it's convenient. And that feels like advancement. In Sri Lanka, we took away the human connection, gave us technology, and that feels like insufficient attention. And that has prevented us from really clicking with the market, I feel. And in terms of key learnings, this is stuff that we are now putting into place. Having the bandwidth to have a client advisor who can take up the phone and speak to you if you want to start classes. It's almost like if the mountain doesn't come to Mohammed, we'll go to you kind of thing. But again, at the same time, I don't know whether it's lack of technology, lack of early adopters in this market, or what it is. But yeah, we're still figuring this one out. And that's it for me.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I kind of had to take a break. My internet took a break because Brinda's story was quite intense. So it just broke down. But yeah, I missed maybe the first part of your story, Nare, but I'm happy that Minuri is there to ask questions on that. But thank you so much again for sharing that. Just one thing that caught my attention. You said we were thinking that, that's what we thought it was important. Do you have, in terms of the call that you mentioned, so now do you have a different perspective of seeing things? Like, do you think from the customer's perspective now, or do you still look at, process oriented and how to keep that, making it more efficient?
I think we've switched. I'm an extremely efficient person, and that's probably to my own peril. It doesn't work. Sometimes you need that human touch. You need less efficiency and more love, I think, and that's what it is. But what we've done is we're breaking down the user journey right now. We're seeing where there is a lot of friction, and trust me, there is a lot of friction as a result of all these tech stuff that has to be in 7 different areas because Sri Lankan financial markets don't allow us to go through one. So what we're doing is we're breaking it down, but at the same time, we'll need a team to kind of back that up, right? So you don't want me doing sales. I will drive away everybody. So we need to hire someone or expand the bandwidth of the client advisor if we're going down such a manual route. But we're definitely breaking it down to move towards the market instead of trying to push the market to us.
Amazing. So immediately there you have 2 amazing stories.
Amazing. Love it. Yeah, sad you missed out. I mean, yeah, gotta fix your internet connection there.
Oh, yeah.
You missed like some.
No, it's recorded, so I'm saved.
Yes, you can always catch up on that. Q&A.
So
we dive right into
it. So now it's like, audience, it's all your time to ask Q&As. But, Brindha, I just have one question for you. I didn't know you came from a legal background. That's news to me. But the question is from that, actually. I mean, you immediately jumping into a completely different environment, doing co-working spaces, and you like, head on went into like interior designing and stuff. I mean, there is more chances for things to go wrong. How did you even handle that? Like, did everything go right, or did you have to like cross your fair share of challenges?
So the interior design isn't just me. Nathan and Jeevan are secret interior designers as well. Yeah. So
this is news.
Yeah. So we actually all went together to China to pick all the lounge. This is for the first floor, okay? So first and members lounge. So we all went together to China, and we were just from one shop to another shop, and it was such a great opportunity to actually spend time together as well. And so when you go into the members lounge, know that was all like handpicked by the founders with love after like many hours of shopping. So
why China specifically?
That's what we thought. That's where we had to go.
Okay.
Where else? Like we had a time crunch, and we just needed some quick furniture, right? So in terms of when we first started, there was a lot of difficulty getting the space up in the time that we wanted to. So we actually got the building into end of 2017, and it took some time for us to actually construct the building, because it's a beautiful old colonial building, and that's great. But I just don't think I look at old buildings in the same way anymore, because there was a lot of restoration that went into it that I think we really underestimated. So by the time you get past all of that, scraping the Burma teak wooden columns, because the BOI did such a beautiful job previously maintaining it. So, we had a lot of restoration to do. And I remember very distinctly a week before Hatch was to open, I got a call from China, and was it a week before? I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks before. And I got a call from China, and they said, oh, by the way, all the furniture that you have that was in the warehouse that was due to go out the very next day was caught fire. So at this point, I was like, what do you do, right? And we had a demanding client. And when I say demanding, like we would get calls all the time, and people were ready to move in. We had 60 people ready to move in on the 25th. So 3 years from today, 3 years ago today, and they'd given up their property to come to Hatch. So where am I going to put these people? And there's no furniture, right? So it was really, really tough. And I think it's really in those moments, you don't get prepared for moments like that, I think. And it took me a very long time to not be reactive and really just only respond. Yeah, for me personally, the first thing I did was just go up to 4th floor and pray, and then realize that, okay, what's next, right? We have to go and find furniture. We have to find an alternative, not just furniture, but we didn't have an AC. So then we had to rent ACs. And it was very complicated to just get going. But I almost feel like that was just a baptism by fire, because I had to learn everything I needed to in that moment. And it really set me up for managing the facilities. And it's funny because I am a lawyer, and there was a lawyer and accountant running the business initially, and I think that's just hilarious. Chalander joined as well, and it was an incredible support to Hatch throughout its first year, and that's how we started until we recruited people. And I think Nathan and Jeevan were just incredible as well. I think as co-founders, they were always really encouraging. They've always like, Brindha, you can do this. Why are you always like second guessing yourself, right? Because when everything is new, and I was fairly new to Sri Lanka as well, and I was just second guessing everything. And they were just like, you need to calm down. And I think a lot of the success of Hatch, I mean, they never come and speak publicly often, but they have been the backbone of the business, and have been really, really supporting me personally as well through this journey. So, yeah.
Amazing. And I think for us to just to realize that we are unable to host this at the first floor itself, as we usually do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an amazing place. I mean, the memories and the vibe you get in that place is just completely different. Now I know where that comes from. China.
No, no.
But something I also noticed is like I'm from a very neutral perspective. I'm asking both of you. You being pious, religious, spiritual? Does it help in any way being a founder and an entrepreneur?
Well, it keeps me sane, because honestly, it's hard, right? You heard Nare, and I've heard many other people speak at FOPs before, and it's like you can have the biggest high and the biggest low all in one day, right? And it's just so draining. And it's almost my way of recharging my energy and really knowing that there's a bigger purpose. And like I said earlier, we're a very purpose-driven business, and we really want to change lives. Like that's why we're doing this, and it means everything to us. So it's hard to keep motivating yourself if you don't have that level of faith.
Nare?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like although I've done it as a sole founder, I've always felt that I had a co-founder in God with this business. And I always feel like I just executed the ideas, he gave me, that's all it was. But at the same time, that means that it kind of shifted though. At first I was very reliant on my relationship with God to grow it. But then it grew to a certain level. I mean, obviously we're not huge, but we grew to a certain level that I kind of took the eye off the ball almost, where it became, I felt the burden, right? And especially after the pandemic, restarting that business, and people were messaging saying, are you opening up? Are you opening up? But then there's COVID outside. And with my science background, I'm way more aware of COVID than of anything else. So the anxiety cropping up and how to keep people safe, etc., all of these other factors. And I kind of took it all on myself instead of just giving it up to God to handle. And that's when my personal burnout also happened. But really, yeah, it wouldn't have been Barresential without my faith.
Amazing, Nare. Yeah, we're getting a lot of comments in just saying how amazing both you are and thanking you very much for your generous sharing. Gayantha has a question for you, Brindha. If you're going to permanently close the middle door on level 1, is this a design? Is this a purpose-driven design aspect?
Yeah, it's so funny. I was telling Gayantha that, we had that door closed for a reason because of access control. And Gayantha, I was just telling him he's probably, Strive really does build your muscles because he's able to break that door.
I know, right?
He broke that door. So
Okay.
yeah, no, I'll keep it open for you, Gayantha.
There you go, Gayantha. See, that is how we do customer service here at Hatch. Love it. Well, a question for both of you, ladies, because I know you mentioned pride was something that did come up, right? But for me, is pride almost rather than something of vanity? Is it a reflection of your very high ethics and high integrity? Because I totally get where B is coming from in terms of, and even what Nare was saying is attracting the right talent or even the right customers who align with your value system, right? So is that right to see it as pride or just having very high ethics and integrity? I'll start with B.
Given the circumstances, I'll tell you why. I think it's because I was just really fixed in my way of doing things. And I thought that my way was the best way and it was the right way. And I think that is in some way, shape or form pride, because I don't know, I think I just wanted someone to see value in what I was trying to do through the business. And when someone kind of doesn't see what goes into, in behind the scenes, I get frustrated, right? And sometimes that just came through as hey, listen to me, I'm right. And what I've said and done, that's pride, right? That's pride. Yeah, that's all I'll say to that.
Oh, good beat. Nare?
Yeah, I think it's two things. I don't know. I definitely do think it's pride and ego, but part of it is you've kind of built this thing from scratch. You've brought it to life. You've kind of grown it through the teenage years or whatever. And then it's your baby, right? So you feel like you have the most amount of say in what happens to it. And truly that shouldn't be the case, because I feel like others also have really great ideas. Others have contributed to its growth. It takes a village. And therefore it shouldn't just be you. And I'm learning this really well from my current boss, Heshan at ODOC, because he started his company at the exact same time, right? But he is an amazing leader because he kind of takes us all on that journey. It's everyone is at ODOC to grow ODOC, right? There's no one who's just hanging about, twiddling their thumbs on it for just the paycheck. Everybody in that team is so driven, and it's literally like the team that I've kind of been looking for all these years. And I feel like he does it because he doesn't have an ego. He really doesn't have an ego. He just opens the door. He has an ear for everyone's ideas. And I feel like I don't have that, and I need to cultivate that. And I'm growing to do that by being under his mentorship. But that's something I lacked massively in the last 3 or 4 years of running that business myself.
Amazing. Thank you, Nare. You're on mute, Tinosh.
Sorry.
Are you speaking?
Sorry.
Okay.
So maybe
the
just to add
statement
a
of 2020.
I know. So just to add a perspective, this is something that I see in myself as well. Sometimes when things are going wrong or things are not working out for you, we tend to call it as let's say ego and pride, because hey, it's not working. But when things are working good, every single decision you make, everything that you work out to be in a certain way, and it's working out, it's like, okay, that's your style, it's really working out. Have you got caught in any situations like that, and do you have any perspective? I think this is something we can debate, but what do you think? Brindha, maybe?
Yeah, I think Look, I think that again, in part of this journey, it's to discover that the business is not me, right? It's co-owned by everyone at Hatch. And when I say at Hatch, the team has such a large part to play in shaping the business, and so does the community, right? So they give back, and we take their feedback on board really seriously. Again, with the partners as well. So for me, I don't really think it's my style. I think that when things go right, it's a conscious effort to create this culture where everyone is really giving to it. And you know, like when things don't go right as well, I think some of the community feel it. And we've just like, you know, it's just this environment that we're in at Hatch where I won't like to say that it is me or any individual person that contributes to the success of Hatch. And I think that's how businesses should be run. I think that any one of us should be able to walk away and that culture still remain, right? And it's good to evolve, and the culture at Hatch has evolved with different team members and different community members coming through, but always for the better. So success, I don't really think it is down to any individual person and their style. In my circumstance, it's very much a collective. And you look, it's 3 years today that we opened Hatch, and I'm very aware that we wouldn't be where we are without everyone's contribution.
Of course, definitely. Nare, maybe your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd agree with Brindha. I feel like when things go well, it's because of the work ethic of everyone involved, right? It's not because of a leadership style or, you know, pat myself on the back. It's literally everyone doing what they all should be doing to promote this one thing. And then things go up, right? But equally important is everyone doing their part when things are going down. And I feel like a lot of businesses during the pandemic, I feel like the team that supported the business needs to be fantastic, especially last year. Like this year, we've all kind of gotten used to it. It's a terrible situation, but we're all not caught unawares, right? We know what every lockdown brings and every wave brings. But last year, it kind of came out of nowhere. So I think that shone a spotlight on our teams and us as leaders. It's almost like going through the fire and seeing what comes out the other side. And it was, so I feel like, yeah, great. When things are going great, everything is working because everyone's working as is. But everything's going downhill, that's when your real colors show, right?
Exactly, yeah. So guys, we are definitely open for questions. Feel free to put your questions. I think, Minur, I think we have one question, right?
Yeah, from Isuri, someone Isuri, who's a business management major, writing an assignment on both Barresentials and Hatch. And it's a very interesting question, might take a while for both you, Nare, and Brindha, in terms of how you dealt with your business, economic, and social sustainability, especially during the last year. Any thoughts on that?
Brindha?
Sorry, I can just see the question here. I'm just rereading it. Economic and social sustainability, particularly during the pandemic. I think during the pandemic, truth be told, during the pandemic, after first lockdown, we lost around 40% of our members, and that's huge for us. It was almost overnight, and it's really sad to say, but our landlord wasn't able to or didn't offer us rent reductions, so it was like you're being squeezed on both sides, right? And really the walls are really closing in on you. So it was a very hard time. But I think what I'll say is I have a really incredible board, and we came together and we said, look, what do we do now? How much runway do we have to really manage and sustain the business? And then very quickly after that, we were able to find ways to pivot. I think what really sustained the business is how quickly we were able to go virtual and really identify. I think it was a blessing in disguise in a sense, because we always wanted to be more than just a co-working space, right? So now we had the opportunity to prove to everyone we were more than a co-working space. So what did that mean? We meant that we were really bringing value to all our Hatch members, and also people who weren't members of Hatch, right, in their houses, through their screens. And I think because of that, because we were able to really stay true to our purpose, which was to create an opportunity, create this place of learning and sharing and growing, it didn't really matter that we had a space or not. Yes, we knew that we had a certain, we had a runway, but it was more important for me to make sure that we retain the people and we continue to show people that we are here to stay. And we almost over communicated with our members and our customers and potential customers, so that I knew that when we came back into business, it wasn't a big leap for them to think, okay, things are safe and they're taking precautions, and I can actually come to them because they genuinely care about me, and they cared about me when I didn't, then they didn't have to, essentially. So I think if you're looking at business economics and social sustainability, it's just revert back to your purpose and make sure that you're fulfilling your purpose. And if you have a business with a very strong purpose, that should come quite naturally and easily to you. Be smart. We cut costs quite a lot. But that said, we never gave anyone a pay reduction to our employees. We made sure that we retained our daily wage earners, and ultimately, our members paid, but they knew that they were paying to sustain certain people, daily wage earners and so on. So I hope that somewhat answers your question, but just to say, yeah, you just have to over communicate and make sure that you're true to your values in order to sustain.
Great.
Nare?
Yeah, huge question. So I think, so a couple of things. I don't know how to bucket it, so you may need to bucket it according to the three segments. But in terms of, we moved really fast. So we closed the studio on, I think, the 14th of March or something, that Saturday, because Roytho happened that Saturday. And I didn't want to risk anyone coming from the Roytho to the studio on Monday, and then super spreader being part of that, could not handle it. So I was going to close anyway for about a week, and then the country closed. So it was very quickly pivoting from studio space to online, which we hadn't even thought of. I mean, most of us never thought of this really before the pandemic. So on Thursday of the next week, we had moved to online classes, gotten some of our members onto online, which meant that through the year, even up to now, I think we've lost about over 100 clients as a result of that closure. We continued providing, we also went one step further in terms of social, I don't know whether it's sustainability or social responsibility. We started offering explanations as to COVID and what was going on via our Instagram channels. So just using my own knowledge and reading up on research papers, etc. Started first doing lives just to explain why we do what we do. So why do we wear a mask? Why do we have to sanitize high touch surfaces? Why do you need to stay at home right now, etc. Which was, although now we feel like, yeah, we kind of know that, at the time it was like, why are we doing all these things, right? We don't get it. And this thing was larger than life out there. We also ran this thing, we should be running it still, called COVID Science Sundays. So every Sunday I would be putting out these stories on Instagram, which is about 20 stories long, breaking down certain aspects of the disease. So either, what happens to your body, or what's the latest research saying about what's happening inside your body. Is it a vascular disease? Is it a respiratory disease? What does it mean for it to be a vascular disease? And then moving on to when the vaccine started getting, not coming out, but more so people were starting to work on vaccines. All right, so what does that look like? Who's working on what vaccine? who's working on which treatment, what are these trials saying. So trying to break these things down, because I felt like no one else was doing it at the time, especially not anyway, not in our market, right? So it was important to keep people aware of the dangers involved with COVID-19, because now people kind of get it. But again, last year it was like, nah, it's something that happens to old people, or it's the flu, I'll be okay. And some businesses were giving that messaging out, which we really wanted to counteract and say it's actually not the flu. And it's not so much about what could happen to you if you get it. It's what could happen to the person you give it to, who's old, who's vulnerable, who's immunocompromised, and trying to really put that through. For a services business, that became very important because it became our foundation in creating that culture of trust with our customers. So either it's our regular clients or our new clients, and we built this following based off of just that, where even now I would easily wager that we're the safest place to work out in Colombo. And I say this quite often in our material as well, just simply because we put all these COVID restrictions in place in June last year. We were the first to close, we were the last to open, put all these restrictions on, and never ever got rid of them. So just because the case count was going low doesn't mean we got lax. We operated at 20% capacity at great business cost for a full year and a half now. We have a 2,300 square foot space, which fits 5 people now at any given time. So you can have a mini apartment to yourself if you so wish. But at the end of the day, me as a business founder, I cannot take that responsibility that someone gets infected inside our space. Like, that is a non-negotiable thing for me. So it's one, keeping our team safe and their families, and 2, our clients and their families. So that's something we take extremely seriously at not personal cost, but business cost. We, in terms of business decisions, we pivoted to virtual. We started doing these on-demand classes where, you know, if you don't have the time to take a 6 p.m. class, we have it all online. You can go in and pay and purchase that separately. We did IG Lives for free. We collaborated with different businesses. So did quite a lot. And also in the middle of that, we recreated our team. We rebuilt our team. So like I said before, I moved away. I moved to ODOC. I'm founder and investor, and I teach a few classes. But we have a management layer now, getting a great management professional to come and take care of our team. And then we rebuilt the actual team itself. So I trained up new instructors who are everything we look for in this new way of hiring: character, values, ethics. So I think we've now managed to come out of that in a much stronger position than we went into the pandemic. So only time will tell whether we last this next couple of months till we hit the end.
We need to open a petition to bring COVID Science Sundays back.
Yeah.
Yes.
My today, guys. So that's the reason I kind of kept it aside. But yeah.
But I think we are almost down to about 5 minutes now. Once again, for the audience, thank you so much for joining us. We actually put this together in a few days, so we didn't have enough time to kind of promote this. And you usually have about 80 to 100 people who attend this, but this time we are so glad to have you guys, within a short period of time registering, coming on board. Minori, I think we are about to close, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're at overtime. I think we will be very happy we're close.
Oh, we are over time. Oops. Didn't even realize that. Realize that.
No, it's all good. And I've also got Gayantha outside. Yeah, I know. And I got Gayantha outside the window here doing a bit of a song and a dance. Trying to distract me.
This is why I tell you,
this is why I love Hatch. You gotta.
And this is why we need to keep this at Hatch. Brindha, just tell us, when we can come back and have this at Hatch. But once again, thank you so much. We had 2 amazing personalities, and you guys shared lovely stories. And I think all of us as audience on Zoom right here, and as well as on Facebook, I think we had a lot to grab and learn from you. Thank you so much once again for being so open and so transparent, and sharing us a little bit of your wisdom. To the audience, we will be back again next month. Hopefully things don't get worse from here. And as custom, before we go, we just have to have that one last selfie. So on the count of 3, smile. 1, 2, 3. Smile, smile. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Have a good
Thank you.
evening.
Love
see
it.
you.
Thank you
you.
both. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys.